Hello and welcome to Cash 22. I'm your host, Mark Allen. Every year, over 1 million people in this country graduate from college. And what's the number one reason they go to college? To get a better job. Each of us has a dream of becoming something great. Some of us want to be athletes. Some want to fight crime on the police force. And some ambitious souls even want to fly to space. When it comes down to it, most of us end up doing something that we wouldn't have predicted as a child. Personally, I've spent time in sales, driving a forklift in a warehouse, teaching swimming lessons, being a tour guide, and even spent a weekend working as a clown making balloon animals. After all, we can't all be firefighters, doctors, and airline pilots, right? Cash 22 is a program about the careers that lie in front of us and what it takes to succeed and make a living. Most college graduates are around the age of 22, and the one thing that's on all of their minds? Cash. How will they make their living? Will they enjoy it at the same time? Will they excel in their chosen field? And what does it take to get there? One thing I think every young professional could use to succeed in the world is a guide or mentor. Somebody that's been there and done that. Somebody that's had to change jobs, work for a demanding boss, and deliver results to stay ahead. To make things fun, what we're going to do on this show is meet up-and-coming young professionals, learn about their hopes and dreams, and bring in seasoned professionals and experts in the field to mentor them live, right here on the show. Welcome back to Cash 22. I'm in downtown Ann Arbor at the Nonpareil Studio, which is a custom tailoring clothing design studio owned by Michelle Moenssen, who's here with us today. I first actually was introduced to this fine establishment when I brought in some pants. Michelle told me I looked like an old man here. It was sagging in the back, pretty embarrassing, but she did an excellent job. They were tailored. Since then, I've brought in shirts, jackets, all of that. And this is a business that I see as a successful one. I haven't looked at the books or the balance sheet, anything like that, but it's always busy. I understand that someone's coming in here later this morning to have a wedding dress fitted and for their wedding this weekend, which is a common thing. Correct, Michelle?
Yes, absolutely. I do a lot of bridal.
Okay. And how did you get started with the Nonpareil Studio?
Well, it's a little bit of a long story. So when I started college, I was an engineering student, and I'd never taken an art class. Didn't consider myself a creative person at all, and even in high school I really concentrated on math and science, and I was pretty good at it and had a real interest in it. But after failing calculus, I thought, well, okay, maybe I need to reassess, and I took a little break and I took 1 semester of art. I took drawing, I took a design class, which was not fashion design but just like art design, and the sort of beginning introductory sewing class in the fashion department. And my only interest in sewing at that point was because it was the mid-'80s and I was a punk and I just wanted to make myself crazy stuff to wear to the bar. That was it. It was just for my own
What type
knowledge.
of things would you be making?
Oh,
I want to see photos.
There's a few, but I had a leather jacket and I wanted to learn how to put all this crazy stuff on it, and so that was just for my own creative outlet. I had absolutely no concept, no idea that this was ever going to turn into a business at all. Mm-hmm. But once I was in that class, I found out that I really had a strong affinity for it. Things came really easily to me. I understood things really easily. And I think because my brain sort of works in that engineering way, it was just easy for me to fall into. So once I actually didn't graduate immediately, I actually opened a business before I ever even graduated from college, even though I continued in the fashion department, for another, year or two. I started doing sewing for a living really quickly.
Did you open up a tailoring shop like
Not
this?
first,
Or?
because this skill takes a long time to learn, and it's really different than designing clothes from scratch. They're almost two different animals. So
you started with designing from scratch and then evolved into something like this?
Yeah,
Okay.
I got a job at the Detroit Institute of Arts making Elizabethan costumes for an event that they held every year called the Wassail Feast. And it was Elizabethan dinner theater. That was a fundraiser for the museum. So there was 8 or 10 performances a year in December. It was Christmas themed, and there were, I don't know how, maybe 24 performers. There was a Queen Elizabeth, of course, because it was Elizabethan, and then she had her court, and they were dancers. So there was 6 of those, and then there was a couple jugglers and mimes and musicians and singers, and everybody had to be costumed. And this was a big event, and you paid a lot of money to go to it. So the costumes had to be pretty fabulous.
Sounds nice.
So I only got the job because I knew the woman who was in charge of the event, and she knew me, and she knew I sewed, but she didn't know my skill level was not up to the task. But I threw myself into it with gusto. I mean, I went to the library. This was before the internet. I went to the library and researched, and really put a lot of effort into it, and so that went pretty well.
So that was kind of your big start then, right?
It was.
Getting exposure
It was
like
like
that?
baptism by fire. Like
Oh,
I really
that's
got
great.
Trial by fire. in
Yeah,
that one,
totally.
yeah.
It was a huge event, huge job. I got to hire people to help me when it got closer to the date because we were under the gun and everything had to be finished for the before opening night, and so it was. But I did it, and I pulled it off, and I was like, okay,
Right.
go me. I can, this is great.
It sounds like that connection was very important in getting that business, that relationship you had with the owner
Yeah,
or organizer.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
what advice would you have for Lauren on making business connections like that as you're
Well,
getting
you
started?
never know where someone you meet could lead to. It's almost shocking how, like you coming in here and like, look what we're doing today.
Right.
So you just never know where, a person you meet could lead you to. And so it's always good to sort of let people know what you're doing and what you're up to, because they could lead you to the next big thing that you didn't even know that existed or that you wanted, or whatever. When people say, well, how did you get into this? And I say, well, doors opened and I went through them.
Right.
So opportunities come up and you have to take advantage of them.
Have you ever
and you
felt
never know.
overwhelmed with owning your own business and controlling your own future like that?
No, because that took a while before I got to that point.
Okay.
It was probably, I'd been sewing for maybe 10 years and sewed for other people and sewed for other tailors who had their own shops and sewed at home for people. People came to my home and I, did that. So it was probably a good 10 years before I actually opened my first business, which is not this one.
Okay. So you were working in another day job
Yes.
during the time?
Yes,
Okay.
I was learning the tailoring skills.
Was it at a tailor shop?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So that would be an important step for owning a business, is work in the industry for a little while, gain the skills.
Exactly. So by the time I opened a shop, because there was very high rent, I really was comfortable in that I could do the job and be successful.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever fear that with people working for you now? You're going to teach them everything you know, they'll be successful and open up a shop next door?
Well, that's always a risk, but that's okay too, because there's not a lot of us around, and so if someone wants to put in the time and learn from me, then I'm always willing to teach.
And we were talking earlier, you said it's hard to find people with the skill set.
Yeah, very hard.
That's correct.
Very
So-
hard, yeah.
So, Lauren, you also have a clothing business, Remark Clothing. How long have you been doing that?
I guess it's been a little over a year now, like really putting a lot of stuff into it, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Okay. And
So-
since
A lot of
that,
ramping up and-
over this past year, what are some of the things that are unexpected that maybe, are more complicated about selling clothing or owning your business than you may have thought?
I think photography and web skills are more of a part of it than I expected. Like I came into it thinking, oh, I have like pretty good photography skills, but it's like not as good to make like excellent product shots, that type of thing.
So are you doing all of that yourself, the web work and the photography and everything? Are you
Right
doing
now,
all those
yeah.
jobs? Mm-hmm. And that's hard because you have to make the product on top of all that.
Right.
So you're wearing every single hat.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Michelle, you know how busy it is in this industry. If you were to go back to the beginning, kind of where Lauren is, would you do it again?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Tell us a little bit more about why. Why do you love being in this area that you're in?
I think it's kind of an unusual business to be in, and I like that. And people get excited about clothing and fashion. People are always, when they find out what I do, they're like, oh, really? They're like always interested. Oh, like, tell me more. Do you have a shop, or what do you make, or what do you design, or...
and it's
it's
evolving
not like,
constantly.
I'm an accountant. I mean, no one asks, you know what I mean? Nobody asks you
true.
questions if you're an accountant.
That can be
but
painful.
People, but people are always really interested, right? Don't you find that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Almost to the point where I'm like, oh, I've been working like 12 hours today. I really don't want to talk about it anymore.
Right. I don't have time to socialize. I have work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you decide what type of clothing to design? Just your personal interest, or do you look at the market and see what people are demanding?
Well, what I do is totally different from what Lauren does because she's making things like on spec and then needs to find a buyer, whereas I already have the buyer because they're coming to me for something really specific. But that doesn't mean I have to take on the job, which is the good part about my business. I can say, well, like, I really don't want to make you that clown costume or that Santa Claus costume or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
I can say, not so much.
Not really your thing. So.
Right.
Looks like there are a lot of wedding gowns
Yes,
back
well,
here.
this is the time of the year. Spring and summer is very busy with bridal.
Do you enjoy working on that part of the business?
Yeah, because
or do you have
brides
a
are always excited. They can be very stressed too, but it's always exciting. And when it's all done and she's really happy, it's really exciting to see that and sort of be part of her day and her
Right.
event.
I imagine you have some that keep in touch with you maybe after their wedding, though.
Yeah, and it's always nice. They send me pictures of them from their day, and so that's
Right.
pretty cool.
So you become part of the wedding. in
Yeah, right.
essence.
Yeah, I
Okay.
made my first wedding dress.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, just recently. And yeah, you definitely become part of their lives when you're making it from scratch.
How did it go?
It went pretty well.
Good.
I learned a lot about doing custom clothing, especially something like a large scale garment in terms of, really making sure that we were both on the same page. So there wasn't a lot of alterations in the future. Keeping things contained.
I found a difficult thing with custom is that, well, you can't read the customer's mind. So you have to make sure that you've sort of gotten all their ideas out of their brain of what they're expecting,
Right.
and the best you can, because they don't have the terminology sometimes and the correct words to really describe what they're looking for, and so that can be kind of tricky sometimes.
Yeah.
So is
Definitely.
this wedding gown you're making out of recycled clothing?
Yeah, it's all out of recycled lace, so lace curtains and doilies
Wow.
that we both found at Goodwill.
That's very unique.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it was an interesting process.
Do you think this is something you'll pursue more and display the work you've done?
Well, yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to getting her professional photos, and I'll be at her wedding too. And so, yeah, we'll see where it goes from there. Put it up on Pinterest and see if I
Right.
get it.
So was it a collaborative process between the two of you, or did she just sort of give you the idea and sort of let you run with it?
It was more collaborative,
Okay.
I would say. Multiple fittings.
Yeah.
She lives across the street from me, so.
Oh, well, that was convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good connection.
Yeah.
Michelle, have you ever worked on a dress for somebody and had it go wrong and had a angry customer? Has that ever happened?
No, not that I can remember. I didn't start working on wedding gowns and doing wedding gowns until I was really sure of my skill level. And if somebody wanted something that I thought was pie in the sky, people maybe have an idea, but they don't understand the reality of turning that into a three-dimensional garment out of textiles. That sometimes they have an idea it isn't necessarily possible, or I don't know how I'm going to make it possible. So I would rather turn it down, especially if it's a wedding gown, because the stress level on that is always higher than making any other kind of garment. So you don't want to get yourself in a bad position.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
So do you do more tailoring of wedding gowns, existing wedding gowns, and like
exactly.
making stuff from scratch?
right now I just really just do altering. It would have to be a really special person for me to take on a custom wedding gown job. But at this point, I'm so busy with alterations that I don't have a lot of time for custom, because custom is really, really time consuming.
Yeah, because you have to make the pattern, do all the measurements.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Make the muslin, do the fitting, and yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about running a business. I know, Michelle, that you had a similar type shop in Birmingham previously.
Right.
Compare that to this one, and why did you make the move over here to Ann Arbor?
I opened in Birmingham in 1996, and the first 5 years of business were really a tremendous incline. I think my skill level was really needed in town, and people just converged on me like crazy. I had 3 full-time people working for me, and I worked like 16 hours a day, maybe 18, sometimes all night.
Wow.
But it's a great place to have a tailoring business, because they're very fashion conscious on that side of town, and they buy a lot of clothes, and they buy really good clothes, and so I was crazy busy, and it was great. But then, the economy started changing, and business started going down, not because of me, but 9/11 and the automotive companies started laying off people and all of that.
Right.
So, and I was just getting a little disillusioned with the demands of it, and the time commitment.
So you weren't feeling the energy and passion for the business?
No, I was really, really, really burnt out. So after 10 years, I sold it to someone who worked for me. And I took a few years off and became a fiber artist, which was another path I took to sort of
How did you do that? What sort of training did you go through?
In the fashion department that I went to at Wayne State, you have to take some textile design classes. So you take weaving and surface design. So you learn screen printing and dyeing, and I was always really interested in that because I love fabric. And if you love fabric, you're always, you love anything about
dyeing
that stuff.
too. Yeah.
So I thought, well, maybe I can pursue that sort of thing, and I could make one-of-a-kind pieces that are hand-dyed or felted or woven or mix it all together and whatever. So I started doing that and made some felted pieces that were dyed, and kind of unusual, not something that a lot of people do felting, but they didn't do the kind of felting I was doing, which was like bigger scale pieces.
You found a niche then?
Yeah, well, you try, right? You got to try and find a niche.
Like you've done too.
Yeah. It's important too if you're selling at craft shows and art fairs, I assume.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you got to differentiate yourself, because when they line up their artists, they.
Right. So I did get accepted into some pretty high-end shows, and I traveled and did them in different parts of the country. But it's very expensive to do. To pay for a booth
There's a
at a high-end
registration fee
show,
and all of that.
then you have to pay for your travel, and you have to write, you have to make all your product, so you have to have all your inventory, and you have to pay for all that before you even go. So it's a huge financial outlay, and once you're at the show, you have no idea if you're gonna make $5, right? You could. Is
your goal at the show to sell the inventory you have there, or to get contract work ongoing?
No, really,
all of the above.
Well,
really.
All the above.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any sort of contact or future business or whatever.
And how did that go?
Not well.
Not well?
No, it was a bad time for the economy, and I think it was just a lot harder than I expected it to be, with the whole booth setup and all the things you have to buy for the booth, as you know. So I thought, after a while, it was a great experience. I met a lot of great artists, and it was, of course, a great learning experience, but I decided that maybe I needed to go back to what I really knew I could make a living at.
So you're glad you did it for the experience,
Sure.
but it was time to come back and get a steady income again? Okay. All right. Have there been a lot of ups and downs in your career in terms of financial stability and income?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
But now you feel like you're at a good place today?
Well, I really, really like Ann Arbor. The client base and their attitudes, I guess, try to put it politically correctly, compared to where I was previously, where it was a very demanding clientele. Ann Arbor's much more easygoing, and I sort of feel like I found my people. So
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
There's an eclectic mix here. in
Yeah,
Ann
I have a
Arbor.
good time with my customers. We laugh a lot, and that really makes it fun. So, yeah, I really feel like I've sort of found my comfort zone here. Like what I'm doing, I like my clientele, so that's really important.
Okay, yeah, that's great. A couple of things stand out to me. You've worked 16 to 18 hours a day before. Lauren, how do you feel about those type of hours? Do you think you can do this business without putting in that sort of time? Are you open to that? What do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I would like to get to the point where I'm not working as much per day, but
Right. But is that the reality of being in this business, do you think, Michelle?
Well, I think it is, but I think it's, you need to get to a point where you don't maybe have to wear every hat. Mm-hmm. And that if you can get to the point where you can get some help, because it's hard to be profitable if you personally have to make every single piece yourself.
right.
And then market it at a wholesale. Yeah, I don't know if you're selling to, are you selling to stores?
I've just started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because then you have to sell at a wholesale
Right.
price so that the store can turn around and make a profit on it. And so that can be tough.
Mm-hmm.
So
Have there been any commitments you've made in the past that have been costly financially that you could say to Lauren, oh, don't start making shirts, focus on dresses, or are there other business decisions that would be helpful for her to know?
I think an important thing is to find a niche that may be pretty narrow and kind of stick to it for a while.
Become known for something?
Yeah, but it's also a less financial commitment. Like if you're, so that you don't have money in 5 different areas, it's hard to sort of make an impact, whereas you're maybe concentrating on one more specific thing. I think it's easier to make an impact with the public and sort of get known for something and get good at it. Mm-hmm. And then maybe after that kind of expand into other products.
Like I was thinking at first, I was like, well, maybe I'll do the recycled, upcycled clothes, and I'll do naturally dyed because dyeing
Because
always
it's
has
so
its
fun.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Has its appeal, and then I was like, well, I really need to focus on one or the other for a while, and so I did the recycled clothes.
Yeah.
What's your advice there, Michelle? Follow the things you like doing the most, or look at where the market's going and do what
I think
people
you
are
have to
demanding?
find the sweet spot where you really like what you're doing and that the market likes it too, and you can make a profit. Because you can't do one without the other, right? You can't make a product that no one wants to buy. That's not going to make you any money. But if you make something you really love and so you have to sort of find a balance between what's going to make you money, what you really love, what will sell in the market, that you can make at a profitable price and sell in the market. That's really important too. Because you can sell really, really expensive things, but then your market is so much smaller that it's really, really hard to get to those people. They're out there, but how do you get your product to how do you get them to know about your product?
Right. Would you say word of mouth is your best source
Well,
for marketing?
For me, it's word of mouth, but that wouldn't work for Lauren necessarily because I'm a service, really. I mean, I sell products because I'm making things, but that's a small part of my business. But she's selling a product, so word of mouth may work for her a bit, but not necessarily.
What other sorts of marketing things have you thought about, Lauren?
I'm really trying to work on my photography. That way I can do better on Instagram.
Pinterest.
Yeah, see, those
Pinterest.
things are really, really important to you, especially things like Instagram because people want to see a visual of your product and get it out there. So that doesn't work for me. I mean, I can't show a picture of my alterations. That doesn't work. But that kind
before
of thing,
or after,
well,
but it's people don't really want to model for
no,
that.
that's not so interesting,
Yeah.
really, as what a cool, recycled thing you created.
So Lauren, as you hear about the business life from Michelle and some of her experience, how do you feel about being in this industry long term? Are you considering other paths, or is this something for sure you're going to keep doing?
I think I'm going to do this for a while, but I'd also like to work for some sportswear company like Patagonia or something like that. and I'm very interested in pattern making too. It's one of my favorite parts of the process. So I'm trying to figure out maybe going into that as well in the future. But I think it would be interesting after I'm doing this for a while and really build up my resume in this sort of area, because I don't have an apparel or textiles background. So building up my experience in that and then figuring out if I want to move into something else.
Do you feel like you have the skills in this area, or is there more training that you feel like you need, such as formal education in textiles?
I am taking some community college classes, and I am currently working at my community college's costume shop.
Oh,
Okay.
that's very cool.
That's
So
good.
I'm
It's been
sure
fun.
that's a good learning experience.
Are the costumes for the theater department?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think this upcoming semester will probably be my last semester of classes. And I think from there, I just really need to just keep going.
Just go for
Yeah.
it. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's good. So, Michelle, I understand you're probably not going to change industries at this point, and one indicator for me is some new artwork on your arm. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Well, yes, I recently decided, I'm pretty serious about this. I call myself a tailor, and I really am a tailor. And even if I don't sew for a living, I will be a tailor till the day I die. So I decided to honor that and the decades that I have dedicated to learning this skill. And I got a new tattoo about a week ago of sewing machine.
Wow.
And
look at
so
that.
I think that's,
What type of machine is this on your arm here?
I don't know. It was just something random that I really like the look of.
Yeah, that's commitment
So
right there
it
to
is
your
commitment.
profession.
Yes. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. Is this something you thought about doing for a while? or
No. I'm actually a
spontaneous?
very spontaneous gal, but
Okay,
I'm not sorry.
Personality.
I'm pretty proud of it. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it definitely fits your personality and fits you well with your lifestyle.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks.
Yeah, that's good. So, Lauren, do you have other questions for Michelle about being in business and the fashion industry?
It's like where to start,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
There's so
I do
much.
have to say, I was thinking when you were saying that you don't have like a formal education in textiles and fashion and all of that, but sometimes that's a good thing, because if you don't know that something isn't possible, I don't mean construction-wise, but just sort of in the bigger picture, that you don't know you can't do it, or you just sort of go for it anyway. And it's not that it isn't possible, but that sometimes you like create or do things that like maybe nobody else had done before, because you didn't know that maybe it wasn't a normal thing, or it wasn't normally possible, or the right way to do something. So sometimes just experimenting and not knowing the possibilities or the right way to do something is actually to your advantage. So that's kind of cool that you're just sort of going for it.
Yeah. And Michelle, you considered yourself not to be a creative person when you were younger, but now are
Well,
shifting that?
my skills are really more in the technical things.
Okay.
I jokingly call myself a garment engineer.
All right. Garment engineer. That's
Right.
a term you coined yourself.
Yeah, I also come from engineering background.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to do when I was in high school.
Yeah,
And then-
but I think that it really, really helps, because
Well, it's a lot of math.
it's a lot of math, and people don't realize
That's
that
interesting.
you can't just create a garment by cutting fabric out in any old way or any direction or any shape and kind of sew it up and think you're going to have like a workable, functional garment. It doesn't work that way. It's actually very, very technical. Yeah.
Oh, good. So to get into this industry, you need to be good at math, have a passion for fashion design. Any other things for people other than Lauren that you would say, if you're considering going into fashion or garment design, would be
Well,
useful?
fashion is a pretty tough business. There's lots of very successful companies that close because they're still not profitable, even though they're in stores and they're getting lots of good press and people are buying the clothes. They're still not able to survive. And so it is kind of a tough business. So if you can sort of find a niche and start slow and, build up slowly without, I don't know, having too big a cash outlay, because then it's hard to recoup,
I
your
can
money.
imagine.
But yeah, it sounds like you're sort of on the right path.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Good. Well, it's been great talking with both of you. And I hope that, Lauren, you've gained some ideas here from Michelle for your own business, even though they're slightly different, but both in the similar industry.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions for each other, or do you feel like this is something that's been helpful for you, the mentoring aspect?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have business cards for Michelle. You can stay in touch if you want to follow up with other questions as you go through this journey as well.
Yeah, I would love to see more of what you're doing. And I definitely want to see the wedding gown. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It was
Good.
tough.
But I bet it was a huge learning experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we know you have customers coming in this morning
I
to
do,
get
I
fitted
do.
for their wedding gowns,
Yep.
so we'll let you get back to that.
Okay.
But thanks a lot, Michelle
Yeah.
and Lauren. And from start to stardom, this is Cash 22.